Let's bring KC Joyner in, ESPN senior NFL Insider. He joins us now to, of course, break down the tape and what he saw last night. And, look, we talked about it Friday. The defense has been a problem up the big play. They have given up 5 touchdowns of 40 or more yards, most in the NFL. So they continue to give up the big play, but they continue to give up a lot of points. So let's start with the defense and their penchant for giving up a lot of points.
Yeah, the thing is I count shootout contest. We talk frequently about shootout contests being where each team scores 24 or more points. Philadelphia's given up 24 or more points in every contest except for the Jets game, and the Jets had a quarterback who's not even on their roster anymore. And what I don't understand is that you've got this defensive problems. You've got personnel issues. You've got some problems in your secondary. You're giving up these big plays, and yet nothing what you do defensively, schematically, and any things that you're doing on offense, it doesn't look like you're making adjustments to recognize that fact and say, look, we give up a lot of points. We need to make sure we find ways to limit the amount of points, because it just seems like the Eagles are ignoring what the problem is.
All right, so where do you see some major weaknesses on that defense? What is it about that defense? Where are they deficient that might not be fixable?
Where they're deficient, well, the thing is a lot of things are fixable because you could do it schematically, personnel-wise. They got Mills back. He's not very good in coverage. We all know this, but he was possibly an upgrade for them. So I don't think personnel-wise you can really get that much better at this point. You can get healthier, and that's a big thing. But schematically you can do things better. Like early in that contest, even offensively, you could see they had the very first series. They get a run, they get a little short pass, and they just sneak for the first down. Very next play, they're going vertical. They don't. It's like we're going to go ahead and just be aggressive, and they, then there was the fumble on the next play, and then you see on defensively, you can see that they're being hyper aggressive. It was that 3rd and 2 play on the touchdown to where they got the touchdown to Austin, where the Eagles are bringing 7 guys in, the Cowboys have 5 guys in the box, and they're just being hyper aggressive to go after these things. And I keep thinking, do you guys not recognize that you've got personnel issues on defense? Do you not recognize that you can't play this aggressive front, that you have to sit back in coverage more? And it doesn't look like that they need to do that. So I think schematically they need to make changes more than anything else.
So a lot of this you're saying is falling more on Jim Schwartz.
I think, yeah, it's going on Schwartz. Remember, the fish thinks from the head down, so you got to start with the head telling Schwartz to do things. But I also see on offense the Eagles being aggressive and acting as if, okay, we need to be aggressive. We need to be aggressive only if you want to get into a shootout. If you know your defense can't do some of the things that it should do, if you know that you're going to be giving them a lot of points, you can either try to get into a shootout game or you can try to slow things down. The Eagles right now don't have the offensive personnel to get into a shootout contest. They're a good offense, but they don't have the Sean Jackson there. They don't have a tear the top off the defense kind of player. They're not a team that's going to go out there and say, okay, we can score 31 points on a consistent basis, 24 points on a consistent basis. That's not who they are offensively. And so it just looks like that they're just – I'm watching the game last night, watching the go over the tape afterwards, just keep looking at going, I cannot understand why you guys are trying to do all this single one-gap pressure on defense. That's great. One gap is great, and it works. And I understand you need to stop defensive. You need to stop the running games in the NFC. You got to stop Elliott. You got to stop you got to stop Barkley. You've got to have a defense that can do that. But you also have to have a plan B that, okay, if this a hyper aggressive defense isn't working, we need to find a way to protect our secondary. And they don't have that plan B, and that's the scary part.
Well, I've talked, Casey, about plan B maybe is you play a little bit more cover 2 to protect your corners. I mean, I know it's not really Jim's number one option, but it is an option a defensive coordinator could use in a situation where he has not great corners, or when you're blitzing, maybe not play your corners that far off the wide receiver because you kind of give the opposing quarterback a pretty easy pitch and catch game there.
Yeah, well, like in the Austin touchdown to start the game, but they bring 7, and they have Skandrick going across. He's following Austin. Austin did what they call an orbit motion, where he runs behind the line, but he started it and they pivoted and went back the other way. Skandrick lost him, even though, frankly, I don't think Austin should have ever left where his line of sight. But he was looking. Skandrick was across the other side of the field, and he was not looking to where Austin was. And then when he did get to Austin, he started losing his fundamentals, which is another thing that scares me.
He also lost his job today.
He lost more than fundamentals.
But you see the team, even on the Elliott touchdown, the first touchdown Elliott scored. You see Jenkins coming up there. And when Jenkins came up there, he goes for a kill shot. He goes for a low kill shot instead of trying to wrap up. And I know it's Elliott, and he's a really great back and tough guy to tackle. But you're seeing the losing of the fundamentals. They're not doing those things, and you can't do those things. So it's like I just keep coming back to, if you guys, like you said, play cover 2. So if you want to go tough against the run, play a cover 3. You'll have the safety in the box in the cover 3, and you're still going to have 3 guys back to stop the deep pass. It's not, you still think they can beat it, but you can play a cover 3 and do that. But you can't just sit back and play the defense that they're playing or leave your corners in man coverage and do those things. And they're just leading too many situations where the other team either has to beat an overmatched corner or, as happened with Scandrick. Okay, it's like the Dallas Cowboys knew what Leonard Scandrick might do. Imagine that.
Let's flip it to the Eagle offense because they had their problems too. They only scored 10 points. Where was the big issues with Philly's offense? Was it their personnel? Is it Dallas's defense was a big problem? When you watch what Philly struggled to do offensively, what does it stem from? You talked about the fish stinking at the head. Did Peterson not have them prepared? How do you see their offense last night?
You go get Dallas. Dallas just isn't the sort of team that you can be taking a lot of vertical shots at. Mind you, look, one thing they did well, they went to their tight ends. Well, their tight ends have, what is it? I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but it was like 8 receptions for 103 yards, I believe it was, and a touchdown. So, I mean, they went after the personnel weakness in the secondary. They went after Heath, and they went to the tight ends, and they did that. But once they fell behind 14-0, that plays right into Dallas's hands because now Dallas can just sit back and they've got corners that you cannot take deep, and you're going to have to put together 12-play drives. And the Eagles didn't look like that. You see them taking vertical shots, and when you're down 14-0, I get it, you have to, but you've got to be able to build drives against that defense because that defense is not designed to be able to beat for quick plays. That's just not who they are, other than the weakness they have covering tight ends. So I think the Eagles need to be, I guess the whole theme I see from the entire team is they need to be more patient. On defense, they want to get up and make a big play right now. We want to blitz. We want to do one gap. We want to make penetration. We want to make immediate impact plays right now. And on offense, the same thing. I see too much impatience of, like I said, the fourth play of the game, when they start to immediately try and go vertical. It's like, guys, why are you doing that? It's like they lost patience with, let's get 3 plays in the first down. We'll do that again. That's what you needed to do yesterday, and that's, I think, what they need to do overall to help protect their defense. But they're just an impatient coaching staff right now.
When you watch Philly, do you see a team that had a bad night, or do you see a bad team?
I see a team that isn't. They're more talented, obviously, than what they showed last night, but they're not playing to their talent. They're not playing to be able to maximize their talent. Their secondary is not as bad. Their defense is not. I look at the personnel in their defense, and usually defense, Bill Walsh said years ago, he said defense is all about personnel. If you've got bad personnel, the other team's going to be able to beat it. Well, the Eagles do have some problems in the secondary. Do they have problems in the secondary that says, hey, we should be giving up 24 points in all but one game this year? No, they don't have that kind of a problem. So they're just a team that is not playing to their talent level. And again, schematically is where schematically and fundamentally, it's a lot of coaching issues. So when I look at this team, you're mentioning about the coaching change. I don't know if the Eagles need to make a coaching change, but their coaches need to make some changes.
All right, we'll get some more on the Eagles, and they play the Bills coming up. That's on Friday. KC Joyner is back. But let's take a look at what happened in Week 7 in the NFL here with KC Joyner. Get a quick thought on everything that happened. It was another crazy week, as it typically is. Falcons in big trouble. This score here, 37-10, same as Philly. Atlanta's the only team that has that they've only beaten Philly this year. How bad is Atlanta?
Atlanta's very bad. Atlanta's probably going to have to make a coaching change. You look back after they lost that Super Bowl and they lost 28-3 lead, you can see the team has just made a continual downward trend since then. They're just not that good of a club. And, I know they got problems, and now they're missing Ryan possibly for a time. But that's just a team that's really, I think they don't believe in their coach anymore. I think it's more than just a personnel thing.
Miami, Buffalo. Philly plays at Buffalo next week. So give us a little insight on what you saw in this game that Buffalo kind of struggled with Miami for a bit. Miami covered, by the way.
Buffalo's former the team. Buffalo is going to play tough defense. They're going to run football. You can do things against them. You can hit some big plays against their defense. Their defense is good, but you can do some things. We saw Miami do that. Miami's got one of the least talented offenses in the league, and they were still able to get aggressive and put up some points. So next week might be might be a game where they do want to get more aggressive than they would normally. But Buffalo is a team that if they don't play their particular formula, they could lose. But by the way, give Miami a ton of credit. Talked earlier in the year about that should be a team that maybe the commissioner should come in and stop them from tanking. They're playing hard now, and it's a big credit to Brian Flores as the coach.
Jacksonville goes on the road. Cincinnati's 0-7 now, but what did we learn about Jacksonville? Is this just more about Cincinnati being bad, or did we take something from Jacksonville winning?
I take a little something from Jacksonville winning because that's a contest where Cincinnati has played fairly well of late. They've played better of late than they have. I like Gardner Minshew and what he's been doing, but the Bengals, it's just you have as many offensive line issues as they've had. They've had injuries nearly every single week this year on their offensive line. They're down to 6 and 7 string guys who would normally be, or 6 or 7 on the depth chart for their offensive line. They've got some issues, and if you don't have a good offensive line, this is what's going to happen to you.
You look at Minnesota at Detroit. I mean, Detroit, this is a shootout game by your definition, but Minnesota puts up 40. I guess we're starting to change our view on the Vikes.
So change your view on the Vikings that they're a passing game. This is the thing. Kirk Cousins will have a few bad games here and there, and then he tends to have these sorts of big contests. I'm going to see what their offense is going to be if Thielen's out for a time. But it also says something for their offense that they could do against the Patricia defense. Patricia is very schematically strong defenses, and they usually are not going to get out of position the way they did. And it shows that you can have a schematically strong defense, but if you have 2 vertical stretch receivers like the Vikings have, you can hit a lot of big plays. I mean, this is a dangerous club.
By the way, Cook and Diggs both had 142 yards, one rushing, one receiving. Green Bay wins again. They scored 42 as well. Oakland fought. It was an entertaining game for a bit, but the Packers too much, 42-24.
That's beyond phenomenal what Aaron Rodgers did. To throw 5 touchdown passes and really get a rushing touchdown, that in and of itself is fantastic. But you look at the Packers injury report last week. All 3 of their starting receivers missed practices all week. Jimmy Graham missed a practice. Even Rodgers himself was questionable coming into the contest. The receivers end up playing, but he's hitting Jake Kumerow and Alan Lazard. He's hitting these backup receivers nobody's heard of until late, and being able to do that the way he did against the Raiders defense, it's not great, but it's not terrible defense. But to be able to do what he did, it speaks volumes for Rodgers.
By the way, I had Rodgers against Josh in fantasy this week. How'd that feel?
Houston. I had Rodgers on one team and had him, got lost him in another league. So if you had him, you won. If you didn't, you lost.
Yes. Houston at Indy. I mean, this was going to be a fight in the South. Houston could not get the win on the road. The Colts, by the way, Brissett with 3:26 lead the way.
Yeah,
Oh, we lost KC Joyner. He just vanished into thin air. He said Brissett. Did you see Rodney Harrison?
I was going to say he was going to agree
Rodney
with
Harrison last night said he's the best quarterback in the AFC right now. No, I had talked about
about being a week-to-week league, huh?
Right. Well, when he first got hurt, I said, I don't think that means the Colts season's over.
Yeah.
But I didn't think they were a Super Bowl contender. Let's bring KC Joyner back in. You were talking about Brissett.
Brissett's he's able to do a lot more of that offense than people thought. If you look at how he played compared to how he played before, when he got his starting chances before, he's playing a whole lot better. Be able to hit Zach Pascal for a couple of touchdowns is huge. It says a lot about Indianapolis, though, their defense. To get Darius Leonard back, he makes all the difference for that platoon because he gets that game-winning interception at the very end of the contest, and he got, I think it's their defense. They've got a very good defense, but he's not their average.
Arizona wins again, 3 in a row. They beat the Giants, who, the Giants, their rookie quarterback made them look good. Now all of a sudden it's Murray winning 3 straight. Are the Cardinals a player?
The Cardinals are becoming a player, and they do it with Chase Edmonds, the backup running back. Mind you, the Giants are one of the worst rush defenses in the league. But if you can do what you could do against even that kind of a defense, that just speaks a lot for him. But you see Kyler Murray, you can see now they're coming up with another way to win games. It's like, they're just going to be a passing team. No, that offense can adjust, and if it needs to run the ball, they can run the ball. So it speaks a lot for them, and their defense is getting to be average. I don't think they're going to be a playoff contender, but I would not. They're not going to be a pushover the early in the season.
Tough to take anything from San Francisco at Washington, but the 49ers are still unbeaten.
Power football wins. Power football has never not won in the history of the NFL, the history of football pretty much at all levels. They play power football better than anybody in the league. The passing game was terrible, but when you look at those conditions, it's tough to get any passing game going. But it shows that when you can power run the football and you can play the kind of defense they play. And by the way, if Philadelphia wants to learn something about playing schematically sound defense, just watch a couple of San Francisco tapes. They'll show you.
Chargers at Tennessee. The Chargers lost in the most Chargers ways possible, and Tennessee gets a squeaks out with a home win. The Chargers really, I mean, unfortunately some injuries out there, but their season has gone off the rails, it looks like.
It has, and not only that, but keep looking at when you get to that goal and like that, and I keep seeing Tom Brady do sneaks at 42 years old, and you see a quarterback like Philip Rivers. Yeah, he's not a spring chicken anymore, but you see these quarterbacks who won't do sneaks, and then you've got to hand the ball off, and their offensive line is in terrible shape. So you'd rather not hand the ball off to your running back if you can help it, but they have to, and it says something for them, and it's part of the reason that they lost that contest.
This was fun for a little bit, back and forth, New Orleans and the Bears, but then the Saints on the road started to pull away. Bridgewater wins again. Saints looking pretty good.
Big difference for the Bears. Two big differences. One, Trubisky. He missed some games earlier this year, and he was questionable coming into this contest. He looks like he's not quite what he was last year. But also the Bears' defense, Fangio goes over and he coaches the Broncos. Everybody says, oh, their defense will be just as good. It's kind of like when Buddy Ryan left the 46 defense, and Vince Tobin came in to coach after that. They still had a really good defense. It wasn't quite the same. Same thing here with the Bears. And if that defense is taking a step back, if Trubisky's taking a step back, that's an average team.
Baltimore goes on the road and beats up on Seattle. What gives here with the Seahawks? Everybody was starting to buy into them, and then all of a sudden a stinker against a Baltimore team that got roughed up by Cleveland. I mean, you never can figure out what's going on in this league, but how does Baltimore go on the road and beat up on Seattle?
Baltimore secondary is very good. And by the way, Baltimore secondary got the pick six yesterday, and they almost got Jimmy Smith back. They don't quite have him back, but if he's healthy for the rest of the stretch run, with everything else they have in their secondary, and now they're adding him there, and they've got their front seven is solid, I think that's a very dangerous secondary. And they were able to do things to the Seattle passing attack that other teams weren't able to do. And by the way, you see Wilson making that pass that he made out there. He just throws that pass out in the flat that Peters picked off.
Yep.
That's a pass that he shouldn't make.
So you're saying that's better than Darby and Mills?
They can get Peters, and they can get. Look, hey, I don't know why the Eagles didn't get Ramsey and why they didn't try and get Peters, something of that nature. You need secondary upgrades. The players were there.
It'd be great to see Ramsey playing 12 yards off every good receiver. It's really fun.
Yeah, he didn't have a good game yesterday. Yeah.
Let's real quick tonight. You've got New England and the Jets. I mean, Darnold's back make it a little bit more interesting. But New England's defense has been so good. But Katie, we don't really know who this Patriots team has played nobody yet, so we don't really know who they are. I guess we just assume they're going to go into New York and beat this Jets team.
We assume because of the way they played in the past against them, and the Jets do have some issues on offense. But Darnold, again, the last quarter of last season, Darnold led the league in total QBR for the last 4 games of last season. So he is that caliber of quarterback. And you're right, New England's defense, they have not faced anybody of note this season, and I don't know that the Jets will necessarily qualify, but I say this said 100 times. That I did a study years ago that showed that if you play a weak schedule, if you've got get to the playoffs and you play a weak schedule, teams that play weak schedules don't do anywhere nearly as well as teams that play tough schedules. So New England needs to be aware of that, and because I think their schedule is not going to be any tougher around the rest of the season.
Yeah, we do see that a lot. These teams that get like 12-4, 13-3, and they play the last place schedule and they get in. The Bears were like that last year. A lot of people didn't believe in them because they were kind of that last place team that went to first. But Patriots aren't last place that went to first. They're in first place every damn year. In fact, they're the Super Bowl defending champions. All right, KC Joyner's back on Friday. He will preview the Eagles and Bills and all of Week 8 as we are almost at the midway point. We're about there. As many of these teams we're starting to get a better feel on. But just because you have a better feel of teams, Casey, you just still can never predict an NFL Sunday.
Any given Sunday, man.
We'll talk to you Friday.
Thank you.
KC Joyner, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline.